The first time she stepped into that silent, cold mansion, her hands were trembling, not because of the size of the house, but because she wasn't supposed to be there. This wasn't her life, not her job, not her name on the records. She had taken her sister's place as a maid, hiding the truth behind a forced smile, knowing that one mistake could destroy everything. But what she didn't expect was that behind those walls lived a broken man and a lonely little boy who would change her life forever. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unexpected love, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, Lonely Dad Strong Heart. Your support keeps these stories alive. Her name was Amina, though in that house, she answered to her sister's name, Sadia. The light tasted bitter every time someone called her, but she had no choice. Her older sister had fallen ill, too weak to continue working, and the family depended on that small income. Rent was overdue, medicine was expensive, and their mother's eyes carried a constant fear of losing everything. So Amina made a decision that frightened her more than anything. She would step into her sister's life, just for a while, just until things got better. The mansion belonged to a man known in the city for his wealth and silence. People spoke of him in hushed tones, calling him cold, distant, untouchable. His name was Rehan Malik, a CEO who had built an empire from nothing, but lost something far more valuable along the way. His wife had passed away years ago, and since then, he had shut the world out. All that remained in his life was his young son, Zion, a quiet child with eyes that carried more loneliness than any child should. On her first day, Amina noticed the stillness of the house. It wasn't peaceful, it was heavy, like grief had seeped into the walls. The servants moved carefully, speaking softly, as if afraid to disturb something fragile. And then she saw him, the CEO. Tall, composed, and distant. His face showed no warmth, no anger, just emptiness. He didn't even look at her twice, only giving a brief nod before walking away. But it wasn't him who unsettled her, it was the boy. Zion stood near the staircase, watching her with quiet curiosity. His small hands clutched a toy that looked untouched, like it had been held but never played with. When their eyes met, something inside Amina shifted. She saw herself in him, the same loneliness, the same silent longing for warmth. Days turned into weeks, and Amina slowly adapted to her new life. She worked hard, making sure every corner of the house was spotless, every task done perfectly. She couldn't afford mistakes. Every moment carried the weight of her secret. But it was Zion who began to change everything. At first, he barely spoke. He would sit quietly, watching cartoons without laughing, eating without appetite, existing without joy. Amina couldn't ignore it. She started small, leaving his favorite snacks nearby, tidying his toys in playful arrangements, humming soft lullabies while working. Slowly, almost invisibly, the boy began to respond. One day, he smiled. It was brief, almost hesitant, but it felt like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. Amina's heart tightened. She realized then that she wasn't just working in that house anymore, she was becoming part of its healing. Rehan noticed too. He began to observe from a distance, the way his son followed Amina around, the way his quiet home started to feel less empty. For the first time in years, he heard laughter echo through the halls. It confused him. It scared him. Because hope was something he had buried long ago. Amina tried to keep her distance from him. She knew her place, knew the boundaries she couldn't cross. But fate had its own plans. One evening, Zion fell sick with a high fever. Panic filled the house. The doctors were called, the staff rushed around, but it was Amina who stayed by his side through the night. She wiped his forehead, whispered comforting words, and held his hand as he drifted in and out of sleep. Rehan stood at the doorway, watching silently. He saw something he hadn't seen since his wife passed away, genuine care, selfless love. Not out of duty, but from the heart. And for the first time, he spoke to her, not as an employer, but as a man searching for something he had lost. From that night on, everything began to change. Their interactions grew longer, softer. Rehan found himself asking about her day, about small things that didn't matter but somehow felt important. Amina, despite her fear, felt a strange comfort in his presence. She saw past his cold exterior and recognized the pain he carried. But with every passing day, her secret grew heavier. She wasn't Sadia. She wasn't who they thought she was. And the more she became part of their lives, the more terrifying the truth became. One afternoon, while cleaning his study, Amina found a photograph tucked away in a drawer. It was of Rihan, his wife, and Zion, a happy family frozen in time. She stared at it for a long moment, her chest tightening. She realized then that she wasn't just stepping into a job, she was stepping into a space left behind by someone irreplaceable. That night, she couldn't sleep. Guilt consumed her. She knew she had to tell the truth. But every time she imagined Zion's face, Rihan's silence, her courage disappeared. What if they sent her away? What if everything she had helped build collapsed? And then, the truth came out. Not from her, but from someone else. A former colleague of her sister visited the house and recognized her instantly. The confrontation was sudden, sharp, and unavoidable. Within minutes, the lie was exposed. Rihan's reaction was worse than anger. It was disappointment. He didn't shout. He didn't accuse. He simply looked at her with the same cold emptiness she had seen on her first day, but this time, it hurt more. Because now, she knew what it meant. She tried to explain, her voice breaking as she spoke about her sister, her family, the desperation that led her to lie. But the words felt small compared to the trust she had broken. Zion didn't understand everything, but he understood one thing: Amina was leaving. The way he clung to her that day, the way he cried for her to stay, shattered something inside Rihan. He saw the pain in his son's eyes, the same pain he had tried so hard to protect him from. And in that moment, he realized something important. Amina may have entered their lives with a lie, but everything she gave them after that was real. Days passed after she left, and the house returned to its old silence. But this time, it felt heavier than before. Zion stopped smiling again. Rihan found himself staring at empty spaces where laughter once lived. He tried to ignore it. But he couldn't. Because for the first time in years, someone had brought life back into his world, and he had let her go. Meanwhile, Amina returned to her small home, carrying the weight of everything she had lost. She continued caring for her sister, trying to move forward, but a part of her remained in that mansion, in the laughter of a little boy and the quiet gaze of a broken man. Before we reach the ending, I want you to comment below: have you ever had to make a difficult choice that changed your life forever? One evening, as Amina sat by the window, lost in her thoughts, there was a knock at the door. When she opened it, her heart stopped. Rihan stood there, not as a CEO, not as a distant, untouchable man, but as someone who had finally allowed himself to feel again. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. Because sometimes, forgiveness isn't about words, it's about showing up. He had come not just for her, but for the life they had unknowingly built together. And this time, there were no lies between them. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Lonely Dad Strong Heart. Your support means everything, and it helps bring more emotional stories like this to life. Because sometimes, love doesn't come in perfect ways. Sometimes, it begins with a mistake, and turns into something beautiful.